I never thought I'd have to sneak around and hide things from my ex-wife and her new husband, but here I am trying to keep my son's birthday party a secret from them. My son and I have always been close, even after the divorce. I made sure to spend as much time with him as possible. We would go to the park, play catch in the backyard, and watch his favorite movies together. And I had always gotten along well with my ex-wife. We had our differences, of course, but we had managed to maintain a cordial relationship for the sake of our son. We would exchange polite greetings and chat briefly about how he was doing. But then she started dating this new guy. They had only been together for a few months when they got married, and I barely knew him. We had never really talked, and I had never spent any time with him. At first, I tried to give him the benefit of the doubt. I figured he was just trying to fit in and be a part of our son's life. But as time went on, I started to notice that he was becoming more and more controlling. He would make decisions about our son's life without consulting me or my ex-wife. He would criticize my parenting and make snide comments about my relationship with my son. And worst of all, he would try to keep me from seeing my son as often as I wanted to. So when my son came to me and asked if he could have a small birthday party with his friends, I didn't see anything wrong with it. I talked to my ex-wife about it and she seemed fine with the idea. But then her new husband found out about the party, and that's when all hell broke loose. He called me up and started yelling at me, accusing me of trying to undermine his authority as a stepfather. He said that he should have been consulted about the party and that he had every right to know what was going on with his stepson. I tried to explain that it was just a small party and that there was no need to get so upset about it, but he wouldn't listen. He kept yelling and screaming, and I could tell that he was getting more and more worked up. Eventually, I had to hang up on him. I didn't want to escalate the situation any further, and I didn't want my son to hear all the yelling and fighting. But now it seems like things are only going to get worse. My ex-wife's new husband is threatening to take me to court over this. He says that I'm not being a responsible parent and that I'm putting my son in danger by throwing a party without his knowledge. I don't know what to do. I just wanted to give my son a nice birthday party with his friends. I didn't think it would cause so much drama and stress. I decided to have a serious talk with my ex-wife about him. I wanted to know why he was so controlling and why he felt the need to interfere in our son's life. At first, my ex-wife was defensive. She told me that I was overreacting and that her new husband was just trying to be a good stepfather. But then I could see the shame in her eyes. She admitted that she had rushed into the marriage with her new husband. She had been so caught up in the idea of having a new husband and a stable family for our son that she hadn't taken the time to really get to know the guy. And now she was starting to regret her decision. She told me that her new husband had become increasingly controlling and abusive, and she didn't know how to get out of the situation. I was shocked. I had no idea that things had gotten so bad between them. I offered to help her to find a lawyer or a therapist who could assist her in getting out of the relationship, but she just shook her head and told me that she didn't want to cause any more drama or stress for our son. As we talked, I couldn't help but feel a sense of guilt. Maybe if I had fought harder for custody of our son, or if I had been more involved in his family, my ex-wife wouldn't have felt so alone and vulnerable. But there was no use dwelling on the past. Right now, we have to deal with the present. And the present was that my ex-wife's new husband was threatening to take me to court over my son's birthday party. But I knew that he didn't have a leg to stand on. You see, he had already tried to take me to family court once before. He had accused me of being an unfit father and had tried to limit my time with our son. But his appeal had been rejected. The judge had seen through his lies and manipulation and had recognized that I was a caring and responsible parent. I had hoped that after that experience, my ex-wife's new husband would back off and stop interfering in our lives. But it seemed like he was just getting more and more desperate to assert his authority. I didn't know what will happen next. Update 1. I knew that I had to stand up for my son and my rights as a father. No one was going to take away my relationship with him, no matter how hard they tried. So I decided to take action. I called my ex-wife and told her that I was going to fight for full custody of our son if she didn't get a grip on her situation. I couldn't let her new husband continue to manipulate and control our family. At first, my ex-wife was defensive. She told me that I was being unreasonable and had no right to interfere in her personal life. But I was firm. I told her that I had every right to protect our son and that I was willing to do whatever it took to ensure his safety and well-being. I also spoke to my ex-wife's parents about the situation. They had always been supportive of me and our son, and they agreed to testify against my ex-wife's new husband in court. They had seen firsthand how he treated their grandson, and they knew that he was not fit to be a stepfather. My ex-wife's parents were shocked when they heard about what had been going on. They had no idea that their daughter was in such a dangerous and abusive situation, and they were horrified to hear about the way that her new husband was treating our son. After we spoke, my ex-wife's parents sat down with her and had a serious conversation about what was going on. They told her that they were worried for her safety and the safety of our son, and that they would do whatever it took to help her get out of the situation. At first, she was very defensive. She told them that she loved her new husband and that they didn't understand their relationship. But her parents were persistent. They told her that love wasn't enough and that she needed to prioritize her safety and the safety of our son above all else. Eventually, my ex-wife realized that they were right. She agreed to keep our son with me until she could get a handle on the situation, and she promised to work with me and her parents to figure out the best way to move forward. One day, my ex-wife called me to tell me that she had tried talking to her husband about his controlling behavior, but it hadn't gone well. She sounded nervous and scared, and I could tell that she was on the verge of tears. "He just won't listen," she said. "He thinks he knows what's best for everyone, and he won't let anyone else have a say." "I'm sorry," I said sympathetically. "Is there anything I can do to help?" She hesitated for a moment before speaking again. "I'm going to my parents' house," she said. "Just for a little while. I need some space to think and figure out what to do next." I could tell from her voice that this wasn't an easy decision for her. Despite everything that had happened, she still loved her husband and she didn't want to give up on their marriage. But at the same time, she knew that something had to change. "I understand," I said. "Do you want me to come with you to help you talk to your parents?" She hesitated again before answering. "No," she said finally. "I think it's better if I go alone, but thank you for offering." I didn't push the issue. I knew that this was something she needed to do on her own to figure out what was best for her and our son. But I couldn't help but worry about what would happen next. Update 2. 1 week later. As I was dropping off my son at school, I saw my ex-wife's new husband waiting outside. He spotted me and made a beeline towards us. Before I could even say a word, he started demanding that my son come with him. I knew this wasn't going to end well, and I told him that our son was staying with me until the situation was sorted out. But he wouldn't take no for an answer. He got increasingly aggressive, and before I knew it, we were in a physical altercation. It was chaos. My son was crying, the other parents were screaming, and I was trying to hold this guy back from hurting me or anyone else. Eventually, I managed to break free. Security had gotten involved and held him down, and I called the cops. Other people had called too, including the school. When they arrived, they took statements from witnesses and separated us. I explained to them what had happened and showed them the text messages and voicemails I had from the new husband, all of which were threatening and abusive. The new husband was arrested and charged with assault. It was clear to everyone involved that he was not fit to be around my son, and I was granted a temporary restraining order against him. My ex-wife was called by the school regarding the incident with her new husband trying to pick up our son. She was shocked and upset, and she immediately called me to find out what had happened. I explained the situation to her, and she was relieved that our son was safe and that the police had taken action against her husband. She apologized for not being there to handle the situation, and I could hear the guilt in her voice. I reassured her that everything was okay and that we were just glad that our son was safe. She promised to talk to her husband with a lawyer and make sure that he understood that he was not to have any contact with our son. She also said she was going to file for divorce immediately. OP's ex-wife remarried too fast. The worst is with the wrong guy. People need to understand that they have children who will be affected by their wrong decisions. A major red flag was when the new husband tried to stop them from having a birthday party. OP seems to be really trying with the ex-wife even after her new husband tried to take him to court twice. NTA. Next story. When I, 36 female, was younger, my parents would take my siblings and I on a trip for our 10th birthday. It was our family tradition and they want to continue with my kids, Sadie, 9, female, and Jamie, 6, male. Sadie will be turning 10 soon, so my parents told her that they will be taking her and Jamie to Disney. They're only paying for my kids, so my husband Sam, 34, male, and I have decided to save up to join the trip and make memories together as a family. Us, our kids, and my parents. Everything was fine, but my husband's sister-in-law, Emma, 29, female, heard about the trip and wants her daughter, Avery, 10, female, to also join along and has been forcefully trying to get her way even after I've said no countless times. Emma is a single teen mom. Dad's not in the picture. So it's been very difficult for her to be able to provide Avery with certain experiences and opportunities that my kids have been given. Since Avery just turned 10 and didn't have a party, big gift, Emma thinks Avery is entitled to a Disney trip too because my parents, who are in no way related to her, are taking Avery's cousins. I thought this was so rude of her to even ask because why would my parents pay for her daughter's trip when she's not their grandchild? When I told her this, she then kept insinuating that since Sam and I are paying for ourselves to go, we could probably say for Avery to go too. I love my niece and feel guilty she isn't able to have such experiences, but it should not be a financial burden my husband and I have to constantly bear. We already help a lot by buying groceries, babysitting, pay for sports teams, school supplies. When I sternly told her my parents won't be paying and that my husband and I don't want to or have to pay either, she then had the audacity to drop the "we're all family, it takes a village to raise a child" card on me. I have helped her so much. Sam and I have just lost it on her because she isn't even appreciative of what we've already done to help her provide necessities for her child. Yet she always wants to ask for more. Not once has she suggested paying for some of Avery's plane ticket, park pass, hotel. She just wants us to bear this cost so her daughter can live a life she can't provide for. I know it sounds terrible, but I hate having to be the one who has to feel guilty and pay up so that Avery can live like our family when Emma won't even try to pay for some of it. I told her my final decision is no, unless if she wants to pay for Avery, then I don't mind taking care of Avery on the trip, and will let her come along, which Emma said no to because she can't afford it. Now my daughter is saying Avery told her I ruined their trip, and Avery hates me. I think Emma already told Avery she would be coming on the trip before even speaking to me, and now had to tell her she can't go anywhere because I won't let her. On one hand, Sam and I want to stand our ground and won't pay, but also don't want to ruin ours and our kids' relationship with our niece. AITA? NTA, if for no other reason than this is your parents' gift to your kids. It's kind of crummy for that to be hijacked. Emma's entitlement is another issue altogether. I mean, nothing about Disney is cheap. That she can't afford to even contribute makes the whole thing worse. I hate to say it, but maybe you should limit contact with Emma and Avery. If Emma is able to use her daughter to instill guilt and pressure on your daughter, it can have a very negative effect on your children. The worst is that Emma is basically teaching Avery to be entitled. So you should try to correct that behavior when it's still possible. As a part of the village, of course. NTA, this is exactly the problem when you do too much for someone. They often become spoiled and entitled. Instead of gratitude, it's grabbing. Instead of appreciation, it's expectation. Emma has trampled over your boundaries and is not a rational person. Personally, I'd stop with all the financial help until she wakes up and starts to appreciate it. Next story. Every year around Easter, me and my husband visit his family for a week or so. We all go to his mother's house with his brother and his two young girls, 5 and 7 years old. We've been together 6 years, and it's always been what we've done. Relatively recently, my husband was diagnosed with schizophrenia. He has always had some trouble mentally, but he's absolutely never acted violently or been excessively erratic. He has some auditory hallucinations, but if you didn't know, he just seemed uncomfortable. When we told his mother, she was a little off-put, but seemed generally supportive. That is until a few days ago when he was talking to her about our plans for the holidays. Apparently, she just straight admitted she didn't think we should come. She said that our nieces were afraid to have him there and that they were too young to understand his situation. She thought it would be too much for him and it'd just make everyone uncomfortable, so she thought we should visit some other time. He didn't argue with her. He told me about it that evening. He was clearly upset, but didn't say anything. Just said that she was probably right. I was freaking pissed. This is where I think I could be an a-hole, as he asked me to leave it alone. Today I called her while he was at work. To be honest, I was very mean. I said that it was my brother-in-law's job to teach his children to be tolerant, and they absolutely were old enough to understand. I said if she was willing to ditch her own son like that, she was a rat of a mother, and we didn't want to be there anyway. She called my husband in tears, and now his brother called me to say what an awful person I am and how hard this all is for her. This whole thing just has my husband depressed, and he's angry at me for saying anything at all. I still think what she did was freaking awful, but she's not my mom. I think I might have just caused my man more grief than if I had just shut up. But it's not fair, and he shouldn't think he deserves that or that it's reasonable to not want him around. I just feel terrible about everything. Am I the a-hole here? No, you're not the a-hole. What she's doing is awful, and it sounds like the whole family is on board with her shitty behavior. I would distance myself from them and do everything in my power to make sure my husband knew that I supported him. Is he getting any treatment at this time? YTA. How was this going to make anything any better? I get you were mad, and I agree, they handled his diagnosis poorly. But you had to know there would be collateral damage when you insulted his entire side of the family. I wish you would have just told her the truth, that he was devastated to hear that he wasn't invited and that they're misunderstanding the diagnosis for a condition he might have had his whole life. He needed an advocate in this situation. YTA, you had every right to be upset and angry on behalf of your husband. I would be too. But I would refrain from calling his family to chew them out. That almost always just makes the situation worse. Calmly discussing the situation with them is fine, but your husband had specifically asked you to leave it alone. You really should have. You may have honestly, unintentionally made his issues worse, as stress can worsen schizophrenic episodes. The fact that his brother is not understanding of how this mental disorder works sucks. Most people think schizophrenia means dangerous. They are wrong, but God help anyone who tries to educate them. You need to apologize to his mother for your outburst. You were out of line. You also need to apologize to your husband for making things worse for him. You should do whatever you can to start a new Easter tradition for you all to enjoy together or with friends if this will be your new norm. Stay tuned for more stories from our girl relationship.